Hi, my name is Ireri Ghelani and you are watching Pinky TV. Welcome to What Women Want Online. This is a show where you get to meet incredible people who tell you stories of hope, resilience and excellence. We are filming at the Social House in Nairobi, Kenya, and these conversations are brought to you by SBM Bank and Safaricom. If you look at the justice system in Kenya and wonder about the people who work in it with a passion, then this episode is for you. A women's rights champion who has worked around the globe, including countries such as UK, Mali, and South Africa. An overall winner in the top 40 under 40. The UN General Assembly has recognized her with an award, and she's also been awarded by the World Justice Project Awards. Never afraid to raise her voice, to stand for what is correct, a force to be reckoned with in more ways than one. The Executive Director of FIDA is here with me today, Anne Ireri.
Thank you, Pinky.
Such
a delight to be here.
I'm so happy you're here. It's amazing to sit with such a powerhouse and understand who you are, but also see that, you know, the name is a huge, it's like I said, it's a force. In my intro, that's exactly what I said. You're a force to be reckoned with. But then when I see you, you know, it's a petite lady with a soft voice. Do you often get like people underestimating you because of that?
Absolutely, Pinky. I mean, I sit here as Executive Director of FIDA Kenya. So whenever I meet people, I introduce myself. They're like, you, FIDA?
Yeah.
They can't reconcile. But over time, once we start working with them, they've started to appreciate what we do. And I think it's important, especially in the space of women's rights, because more often than not, we are misconstrued as being at war, probably with men in society. So when they get to see this different persona, it actually is a warm welcome. And I don't mind that at times people might underestimate me, but I've learned to take it in stride.
It could also be disarming. So it's a strategy, maybe.
Absolutely.
Okay, so Anne, let's go back into your childhood.
Yes.
And maybe at what age you came across law in Kenya?
Okay.
Because we do come across law in all sorts of levels as we're growing up within this country. And what sparked the interest within you where you were just like, that one is what I want to do. This is my career.
Yes. So I grew up the youngest among four in my family, and I grew up in the 1980s, so people can do the math of my age. But I remember the most memorable experience with law and women was when we had the Beijing conference. And I remember then I was a young child, it was playing out in media, and there was all this, I would call it hue and cry about the women delegation that went to Beijing, and people trying to question why it happened. So I think for me that was a first encounter with women's rights and activism, and really delving into the realm of law. So I grew up knowing that I wanted to be a lawyer, but I had not made up my mind. In high school, interestingly, I thought that I'd actually do architecture.
Wow.
I was fascinated with architecture and design. I still loved anything design. So when I was in high school, I was not too sure about the law thing, up to I think when I was in fourth form, when now it dawned on me, I think I was stronger in my arts than in physics, for example. But then I realized that it was more about creating equality in the society. So when I finished my O-levels, went to campus, I still remember my very first day in campus. My parents took me to campus and I went to a public university that's in Eldoret, in Moi. And that time it was a very new campus. I think law had just started being offered. And so I remember having the discussion with my dad. I was like, I want to do it at the University of Nairobi. He's like, no, I think there's too much distraction in Nairobi. We'd want you to focus on learning. And through the experience I got in campus, totally altered me. And a lot of my classmates, we were able to really focus on being better lawyers, understanding why the law exists. And getting out of campus, it was quite clear on what I wanted to do. So I left campus in 2003. I wanted to be an advocate of the High Court, so then we had to do, which still happens, the mandatory Kenya School of Law 1 year. And when I did my chambering, again to show my journey, I deliberately wanted to chamber with women lawyers. I had an offer to go to bigger law firms, but they were male dominated. Nothing wrong with that, but I really wanted the mentorship by strong women. And I really thank my mentor. I'll mention her. That's Senior Counsel Lucy Kambuni. She was among the first female senior counsels in Kenya. And I remember then her law firm with her partner, who was also a lady called Carol Gidhae, they do a lot of commercial work. And I remember then being fascinated. In my mind, I thought probably I might be more of a corporate lawyer. But they kept encouraging me that, you know what, volunteer some time with the non-governmental organizations, get to see what happens beyond this corporate world.
Right.
And that's how I stumbled upon FIDA in 2004. So I went to FIDA as an intern. Then it was very competitive. We actually had to interview to be interns at FIDA because it was such a game changer that once you focus on being a female lawyer at FIDA, your life would transform, and I saw that. So I did my 1 year at FIDA, got admitted to the bar, and the interesting thing, when I got admitted in 2006, I always say this story because I had 4 job offers, which I thank God for. I had an offer to work for an insurance company, for a bank. I could have gone back to the law firm that I started working with as an associate, and there was FIDA. So then my employers at FIDA, who are now respectable women in the judiciary, one of them is a CRJ, the High Court Registrar, Miss Anna Madi, and the other one is a judge right now, that's Justice Jane Onyango, told me, Anne, we have a job for you, but it's in Mombasa. And I thought, wow, who doesn't want to work in Mombasa?
By the beach,
exactly.
we all assume.
That's what I had in mind. So quickly I told my parents, they were not so much for it because, again, I'm the youngest, and they thought, no, Mombasa is too far because my parents were in the farm in Embu. But they told me, you know what, we trust you if this is what you want to do. Let's see what happens out of it. And for me, really, I keep on saying this story. My time in FIDA Mombasa is what shaped me, because I had a chance not only to be a lawyer, but to really delve into the community. There's no part of Mombasa, then as it were, or the Coast Province, I have never been to. I went all the way to Taveta, worked in Lamu. When Faza Island burnt out, I went there. And all these areas, Kwale to the border with Tanzania. And for me, it was a game changer, because as lawyers we are trained to work with the law. That's a tool of social change. But until you go to the ground, to the grassroots, and you realize the problems that at times the law does not necessarily speak to, that's what makes you think, I need to get back to the drawing board and influence laws that will actually change lives at the grassroots. So I did that for close to 6 years, and I've never regretted that. It really shaped me as a lawyer. And in 2010, I was transferred back to Nairobi. It was a promotion more in recognition of the work I had done in Mombasa. And so I worked in FIDA Nairobi in my capacity as senior legal counsel for almost a year. And after that, I got an opportunity again back to FIDA's exposure. I got an opportunity to work in the UK in a larger non-governmental organization that was specializing in public interest litigation. We often see people go to court. We see the likes of Kiom Tata, who's become very renowned with public interest litigation. But the game changer in public interest litigation is you're able to affect numerous millions of lives with one decision. Most recently, we've seen the decision about the community in Mombasa that was being affected by pollution. That's the kind of work I wanted to do. So I went and I was trained, and I came back. When I came back, again, back to the connections and the lessons in life that you never burn bridges, I ended up working for a public interest litigation organization. That's the Equality Effect, based in Canada. And interestingly, it was a case I had begun when I was in FIDA Nairobi before I went to the UK. So this was a case where we were trying to sue the Kenyan government through the police because of lack of investigation. 160 girls took the Kenyan government to court.
Wow.
All of them victims of defilement and sexual violence, and their cases had not been investigated for one reason or the other. And those were the systemic challenges we had seen in Kenya. Either lack of funding to the police to have proper forensic laboratories, lack of proper investigation skills. And so when the decision came out, and then the Equality Effect approached me and told me, we've never done this. In law school, we are trained that as long as you have a judgment, you've done your work as a lawyer.
Yes.
But as public interest lawyers, your interest is beyond the judgment. How does this transform to changing the lives of the victims that you went to court to represent? And so I started an amazing journey of working with the police on one hand, and girls in Kenya on the other hand, as well as boys, just trying to make them understand, if you see a policeman, don't run away. It's their duty to protect you. And that's what led to the recognition of the project at the United Nations in Geneva, and the award of the project at the World Justice Awards in 2019 at The Hague. So it's been an incredible journey. And just like that, I found myself back at FIDA. And it was not an easy decision because I loved the project, but I believe in growth. And I thought all the lessons I had learned since I left FIDA in 2011, I now had a chance to see what I can do as the overall in charge, being at the helm. What is it that I can do? And so, of course, I gave it a lot of thought. Here you are, as you're saying, with the perceptions people have in society, you're now going to head this massive, it's in fact the oldest women's rights institution in Kenya and in Eastern Africa. So that's how I found my way back in September of last year, and up to now, that's where I am.
And what a time to be at the helm of FIDA, right?
Yes.
Especially during this pandemic and everything that's going on.
Yeah.
I follow you on Twitter, and on your bio you say that you thrive with compassion, passion, humor, and style. What has made you into this person to say that these are some of the most important values to you?
I think, as you've rightfully said, Maya Angelou reminds us that you don't want to thrive feeling you've given everything that you have and you're left with nothing. For me, 3 things are important. Compassion, because you need to make people understand that you know where they're coming from. You need to make them realize they're not alone. So in whatever you do, even as I fight for women and girls' rights in Kenya, as well as families, because they are the backbone of family, it's important to put that human face. Then you don't become so abstract as a lawyer that you're simply going to just make sure the law is followed. You must understand their circumstance and find the best way out. So compassion is very important. Humor keeps me going. I mean, anyone who knows Anne knows I love to laugh. I love to watch anything that brings me joy, because without joy, they always say laughter is the best medicine.
Absolutely.
Even in the hardest of circumstances. My job is 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and you can imagine, Pinky, every story is a heartbreaking story.
Of course.
No one ever calls FIDA, hi, how are you? I've got some good news. No. And especially now with COVID, it's been just one heartbreak after the other. I mean, so many children are being violated. So many women are suffering in the hands of partners they love. So for me, I find humor gives me that balance. It makes me realize that I need to take care of myself so that I can take care of them. Otherwise, if I let myself be so absorbed by the sadness, then I'm not of any use to them, because they come to us knowing we are the stronger ones than them. So we need to walk them through that. So for me, humor is very important, and I love hanging around people who laugh and who make me laugh. And at times, I mean, it doesn't matter that the joke might not be as funny, but I find it funny, so let's just all laugh together. And I think fashion for me keeps me going. It's one of my passions. I believe it's the epitome of being a woman, and it's good to make women appreciate that. I came across fashion especially when I'd never worked in Mombasa, and I realized working with the women at the coast and the fact that they are multicultural, that for them, how you look, not how much you work, but just the value of you as a woman is very important. And when I compare it with other places in Kenya, I found that when you make women invest in themselves, their confidence goes up.
Absolutely.
They're able to be more empowered. They're able to face life, even with the hardship, because at the end of the day, you feel you want something. So I like where I can just to encourage women, to empower them, that it's good, yes, to put food on the table, but you come first. Self-care is very important.
Yes.
And even my team at FIDA, they always know, Anne will always say self-care, self-care, self-care. It's very important. However you do it, it's important. So for me, the three things keep me going.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
another thing that you've said is patience is a virtue.
yes.
I think you believe in that, and I think now, having sat down with you and spoken to you, I can say that you are a patient person. But does it help in your line of business, in your career, to have patience?
Patience. I think for me, a lot of the things we do, by nature, FIDA's work is reactive, and most of it is rapid response. It's rushing to the police, rushing to government, rushing to court to correct an injustice. And so, whereas patience comes in, for me, it's as much as I try to quicken or to hasten the intervention, I still need to be patient to understand the full details of the case. Because what happens, especially as activists, you need to be careful, because at the end of the day, there's a professional service you need to render. So make sure, as much as you're so icked or you feel this case, no, I need to arrest this man, he needs to be behind bars, get the full facts. Because what happens, we might rush a case to court, which is okay. Then remember, the justice process takes a while.
Yeah.
There's evidence that's needed. So even if you have the best of lawyers, but the evidence that was collated was not done well, you end up losing the case. And so we try as much as we can to balance the rapid response, but make sure we have time to invest in the details, because the devil is in the detail, as they say. And I think beyond that, also working with Kenyans. As you've said, I try to also keep abreast with what happens on social media, and you'll find more often than not the perception towards institutions such as FIDA or anyone who seeks to speak on behalf of women is more often than not met with some bashing. And so if you're quick to keep on responding to these people, you'll wear yourself out.
Yeah.
I think for most men, and I have brothers, I have a dad, they'll tell you that if you have a woman in your life and you value her, you'll appreciate why women's rights and girl rights are important.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we are not negating the boys or the men. We are appreciating that for different reasons, women in society have never started at the same place. If you look at advanced societies like the United States, it's only until the 1900s that women were allowed to vote. So it's really not competing with men or boys. It's just appreciating, let's all start at a level playing field. Allow you as men to do what you can do as men, and allow women to do what they can, without segmenting and saying men can only do this, women can only do that. So for me, patience is important, because then you don't feel, you won't get irritated, or you won't unnecessarily get annoyed by people who are bashing you, but you'll try and understand most of them are coming from a place that they need to be empowered, and to understand why the rights of everyone in society are important.
I'm actually going to come back to the men and women issue, and of course the rights as well.
Yes.
A lot of people watching have big dreams, you know, whether it's family, career, achievements. They want to make their mark in the world. What do we tell big dreamers who get their dreams shot down sometimes?
One, I believe, be yourself, be your authentic self, believe in your dreams and translate them to reality. That calls for a lot of work. So keep at what it is that you do, because I always say, even at FIDA and to my friends, unless you have that fire in your belly about something you're doing, then you're not going to have the energy to go through. So for as long as every morning you wake up and you feel it, keep at it. Secondly, be persistent. It's not going to be easy. I give the example of myself. I'm in school trying to pursue my doctoral studies. I'm a full-time CEO at FIDA within a pandemic. But you wake up every day, even on the days that are difficult, just encourage yourself that you'll get through this. And that persistence is what keeps you going, will keep you focused. And thirdly, don't be too hard on yourself. We'll make mistakes. Mistakes are part of life. You learn out of them. When you fall down, pick yourself up. A huge part of making dreams come true is taking the risk So be ready and willing to take the risk. And if it goes through, well and good. If it doesn't, don't beat yourself too much. Just take the positive lessons out of it and move on.
Yeah, I like what you're saying about the fire in your belly. Anthony Robbins says that the achievers are the ones who, yes, their dreams may have been shut down, but it didn't put out the fire. It still burnt. So they continue to, go for it and never be afraid to keep on pushing. You've spoken about technology and how it's an advantage for the youth today, but there is no substitute for hard work. Those are your words.
Yes.
What is hard work according to you, and what does it do for your self-worth?
I think hard work for me translates to you asserting your full self against the talents, the skills that you have, that you're able to feel you've given 110%, not just 100%. That calls for you thinking outside the box or having a non-existent box. It calls for you making sacrifices. In short, just getting out of your comfort zone, because that's what makes you really stretch your potential, stretch your capacity to achieve a lot. And without that, then you cannot translate. At least I always say you want to go to bed every evening feeling I did the best I could in every situation. So I think for me, that's what working hard is. Of course, there's been a lot of emphasis on working smart, which I agree, because it increases your efficiency, but even with working smart, the hard work can never be substituted. So couple the working smart with the basis of working hard. So that's very important, and just give you all in everything that you're doing, from the minute to the very big and to the very grand.
Yeah, and don't be afraid.
Yes.
I think we fear hard work.
Exactly. It calls for sweat, it calls for at times tears. But I like there's a saying that in the recent days has become very popular: by fire, by force. You just have got to push through.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think I saw this on your Twitter. When you see something that is not right, not fair, not just, stand up and say something and speak out. I don't think we see enough of this happening in Kenya. Why do you think that is?
I think what has happened is a lot of things have changed. One, you'd find in the previous decades, I'll give the example of the women's rights movement, there was need for us to keep on going to the streets. The times of the late Wangari Maathai, you'd have to really, really demonstrate. You'd have to go to extra lengths to really raise attention to such certain social injustices. But what has happened now, I'll give the example of the Constitution. It has created for a very progressive Bill of Rights. It recognizes women and children, the elderly as special groups. So in some sense, a lot of what was being clamored for has been achieved. But does that mean we are out of the woods yet? No. So what happens is the tactics might change. We might not necessarily have to go to the streets every day, but those of us who know wrong is being perpetuated have to speak more and louder. And by louder, I mean not necessarily always shouting, but calling those who are responsible to be. And I'll give one instance. When COVID started, and there was a lot of discussion about the surge in domestic violence and gender-based violence, I think one of the earliest statements that FIDA gave was we needed to see more from the highest offices, from the leaders of this country who are predominantly male, for them to speak out. And so when we had incidents of the police brutality, the one thing that at least we can say was an achievement was when His Excellency the President himself asked for forgiveness. He made a public declaration for apology. And whilst others might think it's not enough, for us it still signals a change, because it signals the admission by the government that they have failed.
They did something
so we need to keep on holding them to account. Of course, at individual level, the police who were found guilty of perpetuating the violations are now in court, but we don't relent, we don't stop. There are so many vices taking place. I think what has happened, Pinky, is naturally, if it doesn't affect you, you don't see the need why to. And Kenya is a country that increasingly is becoming a country of the haves and the have-nots. So we need to make sure we bridge that in between, because that is what will bring a lot of inequality, a lot of crime, a lot of injustice, because then there are those who will feel so deprived that the only way for them to get something is to use violence. So we have got to speak about it. And it might mean calling out your local leader, your local religious leader, your local area member of parliament, the president. And if you are consistent, that I know as a person, I wouldn't say I'm perfect, but I try to keep that consistency. Where there's merit, acknowledge it, but where there's wrong, we need to. And I keep saying this in the instance of teenage pregnancies. I'll just still go back to it. A lot of people, for instance, will find fault with a process that tries to legislate on reproductive rights of girls, and they're the same people, whether they're the religious groups, which we, with all due respect, who keep quiet when girls are being violated, when boys are being violated. So we can't preach water and drink wine. Yeah. We have got to be consistent. If you are going to call out and say you don't want legislation that is speaking to children accessing information about their sexuality, then be on the front lines when we are having cases and statistics that are so disturbing in Kenya about girls who are teenage mothers, and we've seen that. So we need that consistency. Then we are able to actually hold those who are supposed to be held to account.
So what has gone wrong in our society? Where are we broken?
I think for me, it's across the board. I think one, of course, the levels or the cost of living has gone quite high. We have to be honest, which means for a lot of parents, they're spending much more time outside their homes trying to make ends meet, trying to put food on the table. However, even with that being said, there's need for collective responsibility, because parents might spend time with the children in the evenings. At least thankfully now with COVID they have more time. They need to play their role. However, other gatekeepers in society have a role. Teachers in schools spend a lot of time with the children. Are we empowering these teachers in schools well enough to be able to speak to children, to speak to young girls and boys? When we go around as women leaders, as FIDA, speaking to teenagers, for example, they'll tell us that some of these things happen to them, but they're so terrified of even opening up to their teachers or their parents because of the consequences. Have we created a conducive environment for children to speak the same way I speak to my nieces and nephew and have a candid discussion? So as a country, we need to imagine, I think for me, what I call pretense, and it's good to be bold about it, is when we bury our heads in the sand and pretend as a country none of this is happening. We are fine. It's from a moralistic perspective. Why are children engaging in sex, for example? They are, and they'll continue doing it. The best we can do is to offer information for them to be safe, for them to keep away disease, and to just live healthy lifestyles. So we need to move away. I think there's a mix of either people feel it's taboo, none of the leaders in society wants to be labeled bad because they're speaking about these issues, but we have got to face them head on. Same with intimate partner violence. We have a lot of patriarchy in society. Our political structure is patriarchal. It just takes one strong political leader to issue a statement, and men who are their followers would listen to them, women who are their followers. So I think there is so much shying away from the real issue, but what they need to remember is unless we fix this soft fabric, nothing good will come out of our society. It doesn't matter how grandiose of projects we have as a country, what visions we have as a country, what manifestos political parties put across. If the social fabric of a country is broken, all those will be fallacies, all those will just be aspirations. So the leaders in our society need to roll their sleeves, and we'll keep telling them that. Get back to the basics, talk about the everyday issues, because at the end of the day, for us to have a strong society, the family unit has got to be safeguarded.
I always say that we get the leaders we deserve. Absolutely. And you know, it goes back to that thing of calling people out when they are doing an injustice. I think we are afraid of doing that, and I really think it's our responsibility to be able to hold our leaders accountable. I'm going to ask you now, you were talking about the men and the women, you know, the rights. I have a son and a daughter, and I have taught my son not to hit. So he's 5 years old, and he won't hit his sister, he won't hit his cousin, both of who are girls, but they feel free to hit him. Should I also be teaching my daughter the same?
Absolutely. And I really like that example, because that really demonstrates what we are facing in society. For society to be balanced, both boys and girls need to understand their place, need to understand mutual respect. And I do agree, in the recent past, there's been a lot of push towards the girl child at the expense of the male child. So it's a question of, if we are asking the boys in society to respect women, not to hit them, can you also speak to women to respect boys as well? Because if that doesn't happen, your son might be a good example. He might restrain himself, but another son of somebody else will not, because they're human. So that's what we are calling on, and that's why we are calling for investment by the government in really raising citizens who respect each other. Boys who understand that girl empowerment is not at the expense, it's not about competition. And girls who similarly understand the empowerment is not at the cost of putting men down. One of the things that really saddens me, Pinky, is if you look at our young adults in Kenya, especially the age group between 17, 18 and 20, these young adults need to be held. They need to really be mentored, because if you take a look at the exchanges on social media, there's so much toxic energy, yet they're the future of our nation. We need to have this generation at that age respecting each other. But what we have seen is unnecessary bad energy towards each other, toxic energy, and a lack of respect for each other. And that's very dangerous for any society. So we have got to get back to basics. We have got to mentor them. We have got to make them understand. For example, if you have a lady in the house who is in a career that was not traditionally for women, respect her. The same way we have the most amazing chefs in the world are men. So what we need to build is mutual respect. And I'll tell you why it's important, and a very close pet issue of mine. If we don't have that respect at that age, Pinky, trust you me, we go for political rallies. That's why women are being clobbered left, right, center. And if there's no woman to hit, the men are hitting each other. We never question as a country, why do we have politics in this country that are so violent? We breed violence in and out of political seasons. It's because it's the same negative energy that's just exemplified. So it doesn't matter what the law enforcement do, what political parties do, what society or religious leaders do, if we don't fix the energy levels that are toxic at that age. These are the same young men who will go to a rally, they are so frustrated, they'll start hitting everybody with stones. Why do university students have to demonstrate anger and its pleasure by stoning motorists? So we are breeding a violent culture, and we have got to stem it before it gets out of hand. And this violent culture doesn't respect class. It's across the board, only that it will be manifested differently. So the poorer in society might demonstrate it more openly, but the affluent are doing it behind closed doors. So we need to really, really be honest about it, speak about it, and actually mainstream it in every issue that leaders speak, whether they're religious leaders, whether they're community leaders or political leaders. They have got to demystify the issue of violence. But it's unfortunate, if those are the same leaders who are actually perpetuating violence, then we have a big problem as a country.
Will we get there, Anne?
I think so. I'm optimistic, and I always tell my friends and my peers that even for us, we have got to stop speaking. If push comes to shove, we get ourselves into that race. We get into the change at the front, because there's only so much we can do. and we have got, because that's the thing, and I always say that about our situation in Kenya, because as you rightfully said, we get the leaders we deserve. How did these leaders get into office? In more often than not, in terms of the situations, those who are the middle class, or so to speak, or the educated, find politics too messy. We don't want to get involved. But hello, this is a person who will be elected, and they'll be paid by your taxpayers' money. So we have got to get out of our comfort zones as we who are empowered. And leadership is not just in politics. We have got to get to spaces where we can influence change. I feel my coming back to FIDA, I'm able to influence certain change, but I'll need to also think beyond FIDA. Which other spaces in my capacity at FIDA can we try and influence and bring that change? But if we don't do that, trust you me, it will be sad, because we'll keep on talking, but now we've got to get to roll our sleeves and get dirty and get really into in the mix of things.
Wow. This conversation can go on and on and on. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. And also, by the way, if you're not a fan of queues or paperwork, then you can enjoy a world of ease on the all-new Postpay. Sign up in 4 easy steps and enjoy more value on calls, data, and SMS. All you need to do is head to your Safaricom app and click on the Postpay Plans. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, SBM is always thinking of you, their client, through workplace banking. SBM Bank has made unsecured, accessible loans for its clients. For your chance to win a phone thanks to Safaricom, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and comment on this video, whether you're watching it on YouTube or Facebook, and you could be a winner. Anne and I would love to hear from you. We would love to know what you thought of this conversation. We'd love to know what you think, whether change is coming, and you know, whether you could also be a part of this change by starting education within your home. I think that's a good place to start. Anne.
Yes, yeah. Charity begins at home.
Absolutely.
That's the space we have. Let's make the best out of it.
Yeah, and keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
And you know, should you decide that you're going to go and get your hands dirty, you got my vote, girl.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, and such a pleasure having me on the show and to meet you in person. And keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
We're the change makers that Kenya needs. Let's not relent. It's not an easy piece, but let's keep at it.
I support you. You support me, and thank you, Anne. I really do appreciate it. I know what you do is not easy. So hats off to you.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for everything that you do. On this show, we have conversations that aim to inspire, and we hope that it causes you to take a deep dive within yourself to find out who you are. Real power is always internal. Real power is self-love. Real power is from your core, and real power comes from authenticity. There's nothing like showing up as your authentic self. Find out who that person is and show up as that person every day. The world will be grateful that you did. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again real soon.